Welcome to Touching is Good, I'm Daniel, and this is Dragon Questing like it's the early 1990s. So let's get straight into things with part 2 of this epic journey through all things DS and the Dragon Quest, with the first of 3 remakes on the DS, Dragon Quest IV, Chapters of the Chosen. DQ4 was originally released for the Famicom in Japan back in February of 1990, with the US receiving it on the NES in October of 1992. And this was the final Dragon Quest related anything to be released in the West until the first Monsters game on the Game Boy Color in 1999. It was released on the DS on the 2nd of November 2007 in Japan, with the rest of the world receiving it in September of 2008. This wasn't the first time that Dragon Quest IV was remade. It had been ported to the original PlayStation in November of 2001, again, only in Japan. The PS1 port looks like it served as the base for the DS version. A lot of the improvements from that were carried over, such as improved graphics as well as an extra chapter at the end of the game. More on that later. Dragon Quest IV puts you in the role of the Chosen One, destined to fight the dark evil that plagues the land and bring light back to this world. You know, the usual RPG storyline stuff. Now, Dragon Quest IV actually puts a fun spin on the story and makes it something completely unique. Instead of just being a story about you and your righteous quest, it's more a story about all of the members of your eventual party and how they come together to fight the good fight. It does this in quite a clever way. You see, the game is divided into chapters. Chapters of the Chosen. Each of these chapters focuses on one of the characters of your eventual party. So the game starts with a brief prologue showing our hero enjoying the simple life in his village. It moves to the first chapter of the game, which sees you in control of Ragnar MacRyan, a soldier from the kingdom of Burland who has been sent on a mission by the king to uncover the mystery of the missing children in a nearby village. After that, Chapter 2 introduces us to the trio of Alina, Kirill and Boya, who all hail from Zamokazva. Alina is a Savina of Samokazva. I am murdering that phrase. However, like most tomboy princesses, yearns for adventure and seeks to prove herself in the world, while her father the Tsar denies her of this. So she takes it upon herself to sneak out of the palace and compete in the Endor tournament, only for 2 of her friends, Kirill and Boya, to insist she allow them to accompany her for her safety. The next chapter sees us following the adventures of humble merchant Torneko Talun in his modest quest to become the world's greatest merchant. His chapter isn't so much about solving some local mystery, but just trying to make enough money to buy a store of his own. It's a nice change of pace from the rest of the game. Chapter 4 then tells the tale of Mina and Maya, who are on a quest to avenge their father who died at the hands of one of his pupils. I really enjoy these chapters that showed the backstory of all your party members before they finally came together in the 6th and 5th chapters. It really helped flesh out the world and show that there's more going on to it than just what surrounds the hero. It also helps shows us the motivation for all members of the party and why they're so willing to lend a hand to your cause once you finally do recruit them. Another bonus was that it forces you to use all the characters in the game so you can learn how to effectively use them, which avoids problems a lot of RPGs with large parties have in that you'll only usually use your favourites and ignore some of them. With this, you have to use everyone, and it really helps in building a decent party that suits your needs. Chapter 5 goes back to our hero, who I should note can be either male or female depending on your choice at the start of the game. You're still living the quiet life in your village when all of a sudden you're attacked by the forces of Pizarro, who kills all of your friends and your family, barring yourself. Your life only spared due to your closest friend morphing to look exactly like you and dying in your place. You then take off on your epic quest to beat Pizarro, recruit all of the characters from the previous chapters, and bring peace back to the world. Honestly, the story as a whole isn't anything special. It's a very by-the-numbers RPG story, but as I've said, I really like the way it's told. It's not something I think I've seen done in RPGs before. There is a special 6th chapter that takes place after the main story. This wasn't present in the original version, but it adds a really good twist to the original ending. It sees another member join your party and unveils a true villain behind the story. So, enough about the story. How does the game play? One thing I found with most Dragon Quest games is that the gameplay seems to play things relatively safe. There aren't any special combat mechanics to wrap your head around, at least not Dragon Quest IV. Enemy encounters are all random on the overworld or in dungeons, combat is turn-based and it's all pretty much the norm. Most battles you can pretty much power your way through with just attacking, although boss battles or some of the trickier ones will require more strategy with casting buffs and debuffs and other various skills and abilities. Much like the rest of the game, the magic system doesn't break any new boundaries, but it's a completely fine and servable system that works a treat. Each of your characters has their own fighting style, such as Kirill is a usual priest-style character and thus has a lot of healing and defensive spells, Ragnar being a straight-up tank and combat damage dealer, Maya a damage-dealing mage, and the hero who is a jack of all trades, and so on for the rest. They all bring something special and different to the table, and it really helps to build a nice well-rounded party. In battle, your party is locked at a max of 4 members, so you need to pick carefully when exploring dungeons with who you choose to take in. On the overall though, you can change up your party during battle, swapping in and out members between your active battle party. I can't recall seeing anything like this in other RPGs off the top of my head, but I really enjoyed it as it allowed a good deal of customization on the fly with Battle Party. As I said, it's only something that can be really done on the overworld, however there is a special item that allows you to call your wagon to you while in dungeons as well, which is almost required for some of the later bosses. The dungeons from the game are what you expect of an RPG of this type, some with minor puzzle solving, but for the most part they're just big long mazes that lead up to the end of a showdown with a boss guarding some item or someone critical to the plot that you need to defeat to progress things onward. Graphically, everything looks fine, some really nice sprite work has gone into the game, and it's a very nice step up from the NES original. I love all the little details that have gone into the monster sprites in battle. They all have their own character and charm. As I said in the last video, Akira Toriyama's designs never fail to look gorgeous in these games. There is a fair bit of 3D work that has gone into designing the environments, such as in the towns or dungeons. It'd be easy for the game like this to look like a mess with a mix of 2D sprites walking in a 3D environment, but it sort of works really well. I really like how you can actually rotate the world using the L and R buttons on the DS to get a better look at the environments you are in. The way everything rotates around your character is cool. I also really liked how the game makes use of the top screen while walking around. The way your characters are all displayed on the bottom screen, the top is pretty much bare, but when you rotate things around you might be able to spot an item on the top you couldn't see before. It really also helps me out to scout ahead in some dungeons to make sure you're not going down the wrong path. Sound-wise, it's pretty much the par for the course with the game so far. The usual Dragon Quest tunes play, and there's nothing outright bad, and a ton of good. Really solid effort for sure. One other thing I want to know about the game before I move on next is the localization. In order to make the game feel more worldly, I guess, the localization team went to great efforts to make sure each area in the game that the text spoken by the characters has certain accents. While something like this will be easy to come across in voiceovers, in text form it's a bit harder. I really did appreciate the effort that went into making each area sound unique, from the Scottish accent spoken by Ragnar McRyan to the overly Australian phrases used in Riverton. Makes this game an alright bonzer of a time. Crikey, yay Australia. So Dragon Quest IV is a really good game. I think people may have overlooked it for just being a remake of an old NES game, but I feel it still really holds up well today. If you can look past the somewhat dated mechanics, you'll find a really fun down-to-earth story that's told really well. The DS version offers a fair deal of playtime. The main quest will take in the ballpark of 30 hours to finish, including the extra chapter, and there's still a few extras here and there to do, such as a casino for all you gambling nuts and a village to help build up. I really enjoyed my time with Dragon Quest IV, and once I finished, thought I'd maybe seen the best the series had to offer, but who would know that things had only just begun to get amazing. Which brings us nicely to the next game in the series, Dragon Quest V, Hand of the Heavenly Bride. This was originally released for the Super Famicom in September of 1992. It was the first of 3 mainline Dragon Quest games that never originally came out of Japan, one of which we'll get to in a later video. However, sadly the latest Dragon Quest game, Dragon Quest X, still remains locked to Japan. 5 was previously remade for the PS2 in 2004, again Japan only. However, unlike the DS remake of 4, which was based on the previous remake, the DS version of 5 shares very little in common with the PS2 version, barring some gameplay improvements and some extra features. Dragon Quest V was released for the DS first, as with all Dragon Quest games in Japan, on July the 17th, 2008, with other regions receiving it in late February of 2009. It uses the same graphical engine as Dragon Quest IV, with the same mix of 2D sprites and 3D environments on the overworld. I would say it does look a bit nicer in some places. They tried a few new things with this and it pays off really well. So while not looking like much of a difference, you will notice little extra touches here and there. One thing which I really liked was the extra improvements in enemy animations in battle. The attacks have a bit more oomph to them and just the general enemy movement was a lot more characterful. Outside of that though, things look a lot like Dragon Quest IV. Another thing that's very similar is the gameplay. For the most part, your characters play the same as those in 4. Certain party members will play the role of healer and damage dealers and so on. There is one big gameplay change however, and that is that you can recruit certain monsters to use in battle. Early in the game, you gain the services of a saber-cat cub, who will follow you throughout the rest of the game, and is a quite useful ally in battle. After a certain point of the game, you'll gain the ability to recruit other monsters. This is done by beating them in battle. There are a few rules that go with this. Not all monsters can be recruited. Out of the 200 or so monsters, only about 70 can be recruited. The higher your level is to that of the monster, the more likely they will be to join you. Also, the more you've beaten that type of monster, the more likely it will be to join. Oh, and also the monster you want to join must be the last one you defeated in battle. It's a neat little feature and mixes things up a bit, adds the usual gotta catch 'em all element to most monster collecting games out there. Obviously some monsters are going to be better than others, so it's worth hunting down those really good ones if you want. Me, I kind of settled early on with my Slime Knight and Great Saber Cat, but I can see people getting a lot out of this if they want to dive deep into it. In the later stages of the game, when I had access to more story characters, outside of the 2 monsters I mentioned before, I didn't find myself using much in the way of recruitable monsters. Now, before I get into the awesomeness of the story, just want to say the music is much like the graphics, pretty much the same as Dragon Quest IV. Some great tracks, nothing bad. Now for the good bit, the story. Oh my god, the story is amazing. One thing I like the most is just how much of a change up the story is from that Dragon Quest IV. In that, you played as several groups of adventurers coming together in the end to fight a common foe. Dragon Quest V, though, is a more compact story, focusing on one hero in his quest to defeat evil. It follows your hero throughout several stages of his life. First as a child travelling with his father, then in his early adult years when he finds the love of his life, and finally the last chapter is with your children, fighting off the evil that plagues the land. It's a really simple story, but the way it's told is just so beautiful. By really focusing on the one character throughout the various phases of his life and the conflict going on around him and how it continues to affect him 20 to 30 years later, really helped show the scope of everything. You really connect with the hero. His triumphs are yours, and his setbacks are just as heartbreaking as if they were happening to you. There are a few key moments in the story, and I don't want to spoil anything because they really need to be experienced by all who play it. One thing I will say about it that hopefully doesn't give too much away is that you aren't really the real hero of the story. You aren't the chosen one in the battle against evil like you are most RPGs. That role falls to someone you recruit later in the game. It was a really neat twist to the convention. You're more of a shepherd, guiding the hero of legend and helping him find his way to the evil that plagues everyone. That's not to take anything away from you, as you are the hero of this game. You are still an incredibly important person in the world, but to not be the chosen bane of evil, I feel is a really bold move, as most games want to put you in that role. I could honestly go on for ages about the story, but I really don't want to spoil anything, as I accidentally had some moments of the game spoiled, and I feel their impact would have been even better had I not known about them going in. So, I'm not going to go into any real plot points here, but everything is just told so well. You'd be amazed to think this originally came out in the early 1990s. I think something I really like when comparing this to Dragon Quest IV is just how effective their approaches to storytelling are. Whereas 4 gives you a grand scope showing groups of people coming together, Dragon Quest V just brings things down to one family's quest. Neither game tells their story worse than the other, but I just like how the different approaches work so well. It's almost like the games are two sides of the same coin, if that makes any sense. Outside of the story, there's still a lot going on in Dragon Quest V. You have the aforementioned monster collecting element. The casino makes a return along with a few other new features such as a slime racing minigame, special items to collect and leave in a museum, and TNT boards, which are these special board game-like minigames found around the world. There is really a lot to do here, and while a playthrough of the main story will again take about 30 hours, I could easily see someone sinking so much more time into this if they wanted. The game has a lot to offer. Dragon Quest V isn't just one of the best RPGs on the DS, it's one of the best RPGs ever made. It has one of the most well-written tales in any game. The combat, while nothing new, still a lot of fun and will give you a fair challenge in the later parts of the game. The DS was a beast of a system when it came to RPGs to play in it. There really isn't a shortage of anything to choose to play, and while it may be a hard sell for some to look at 2 remakes of NES and Super NES era RPGs on it when you could be playing newer titles like The World Ends of You or Golden Sun, these two are amazing, wonderful games, and hands down, two of the best, most well-written stories I've ever played. Any fan of RPGs should get around to playing these. If you had to put a gun to my head and ask me which one is the best, I'd say 5, but it's very close and it really is personal preference. That's it for this episode. Next episode, we take a short diversion to something different before we head into the main event with Dragon Quest Wars, and then it's on to Dragon Quest IX, Sentinels of the Starry Skies. See you in a few weeks.